She's drawn to the man who doesn't hold tight because his calm confidence makes her feel free, not pressured. His presence is steady, his boundaries firm, and his focus rooted in purpose. He doesn't chase or cling, and that emotional freedom pulls her closer, naturally, effortlessly, and powerfully. Emotional freedom is one of the most magnetic forces in relationships, and most people don't even realize its power. When you interact with someone without trying to control them, convince them, or secure their approval, your energy shifts completely. You become lighter, calmer, and more grounded. This emotional freedom creates a space where the other person can breathe. And in that space, connection grows effortlessly. Attraction is not built in pressure, it's built in ease. When a woman feels that you're not gripping tightly or trying to shape her feelings, she naturally relaxes around you. She doesn't feel the weight of your expectations, and that absence of pressure becomes incredibly magnetic. Most people lose attraction when they sense someone trying too hard. Desperation, neediness, or emotional clinginess creates a heavy energy that repels rather than attracts. But emotional freedom is the opposite. It's the art of allowing someone to be themselves while remaining deeply anchored in your own sense of worth. When you embody this, you're sending a silent message. I'm whole within myself. I'm not here to trap you, convince you, or hold on to you out of fear. That kind of energy feels safe. It feels strong. And safety mixed with strength is irresistibly attractive. When you give someone emotional freedom, you're not distancing yourself emotionally. You're giving both of you room to breathe. You're showing that you're capable of connection without losing yourself in it. Women are drawn to this because it signals maturity and self-respect. It shows you're not defined by her actions or her validation. You're defined by your own internal stability. And that internal stability makes you magnetic. Emotional freedom creates attraction because it demonstrates trust, not verbal trust, but energetic trust. You trust yourself to handle whatever happens. You trust the connection to flow naturally without trying to force it. You trust her enough to let her choose you willingly instead of trying to guide her choices. When someone feels trusted, they lean in. They feel valued. They feel seen, and they feel emotionally safe. This freedom also eliminates fear. When someone knows you're not going to react with insecurity, clinginess, or emotional chaos, they show up more authentically. They express themselves more openly. They feel more comfortable letting their guard down. And emotional openness is the core of deep attraction. It's not about playing games or pretending to be detached. It's about being secure enough within yourself that you don't need to control what happens. When you carry emotional freedom, your presence becomes naturally attractive. You're not chasing, you're not holding tight, you're simply being. And someone who can simply be, without fear, without pressure, without needing reassurance, becomes a rare and desirable presence. Emotional freedom is magnetic because it gives people room to come closer on their own. It makes them feel drawn to you, not pushed toward you. And that kind of attraction is not only powerful, it's lasting. A man who isn't afraid to lose her becomes unforgettable because his energy stands out in a world full of fear-based attachment. Most people cling, overthink, or panic at the idea of losing someone they care about. But a man who is rooted firmly in his own worth operates differently. He loves with depth, but he doesn't collapse into fear. He shows up fully without gripping tightly. This creates a sense of confidence that is rare and deeply attractive. When someone isn't afraid to lose you, they don't negotiate their self-respect for the sake of keeping you. They don't overextend themselves, abandon their standards, or tolerate disrespect just to remain in your world. That quiet strength leaves a lasting impression. A woman feels it immediately. This is a man who values connection, but not at the cost of himself. And that balance makes him unforgettable. The fear of loss often creates behaviors that suffocate attraction. It leads to anxiety over texting, over explaining, and seeking reassurance. But a man who isn't driven by fear moves differently. He knows that if the connection is meant to stay, it will. If it leaves, it wasn't aligned. That sense of inner certainty gives him a calm aura that draws her in because she feels that he's not dependent on her for emotional stability. He's with her by choice, not by fear. That distinction changes everything. Women remember men who hold their ground, not with ego or arrogance, but with inner clarity. When he's not afraid to walk away from situations that don't honor his values, he becomes someone she respects. Respect naturally leads to attraction, and attraction deepens when she feels that he's not going to crumble if she steps back, tests him, or pulls away temporarily. His emotional stability makes her feel safe. His strength makes her feel curious. His composure makes her feel drawn. What makes him unforgettable is not coldness, it's his emotional independence. He can love without losing himself. He can connect without becoming dependent. He can care without seeking control. This creates a dynamic where she feels free, not pressured, yet she still feels the presence of a man who knows his worth. That combination leaves a mark on her mind and heart long after the interaction is over. When a man is not afraid to lose her, he communicates one powerful message: I choose you, but I don't need you to validate me. That message is rare, it's powerful, and it makes him stand out from everyone else who tries to hold on through fear. His confidence becomes a memory she can't shake. His stability becomes a standard she can't lower. His presence becomes a benchmark she compares others to. She remembers him because he didn't cling, he didn't chase desperately, he didn't abandon himself. He stayed true to who he was, and that authenticity makes him unforgettable. The man who isn't afraid to lose her becomes the man she doesn't want to lose. He values himself first, and that alone changes the entire dynamic of attraction. When a man carries genuine self-respect, it shows in everything he does: how he speaks, how he makes decisions, how he holds boundaries, and how he allows people to treat him. He isn't operating from insecurity or fear. He's operating from a place of internal worth. And that inner worth is magnetic. A woman can sense it immediately, because a man who values himself doesn't beg for attention, doesn't compete for validation, and doesn't crumble under emotional pressure. He stands firmly in his identity, and that presence is powerful. When a man values himself, he doesn't rush to win approval. He isn't shaped by someone else's opinion of him. He leads his life with purpose rather than desperation. This makes him incredibly attractive because it shows that he has his own path, his own vision, and his own priorities. He doesn't build his world around another person. Instead, he invites someone into the world he's already built. That alone creates a sense of depth and confidence that's impossible to fake. Women are naturally drawn to men who have a strong sense of self. It signals maturity. It signals emotional stability. It signals that he won't lose himself in the relationship and that he will show up as a balanced partner rather than a dependent one. When he values himself first, he won't accept disrespect, inconsistent behavior, or emotional manipulation. He won't twist himself into someone he's not just to be liked. His self-respect acts as a filter, allowing only the right people into his life. A man who values himself knows the difference between effort and overextension. He gives effort where it's appreciated, not where it's demanded or taken for granted. He knows when to stay and when to walk away. He doesn't force connection, and he doesn't bargain for love. This makes him emotionally free, and emotional freedom naturally increases attraction. Women feel safe around a man who respects himself because they know he will also respect them. He won't seek control or cling tightly out of fear. His security within himself creates emotional space, and in that space, attraction grows effortlessly. When he values himself, he sets standards, not just in relationships, but in life. He knows his goals, his priorities, and his boundaries. He invests in his growth. He puts time into his mental, emotional, and physical well-being. This commitment to himself shows that he's not waiting for someone else to complete him. He's already complete, and he's simply open to sharing his life with someone who aligns. What makes this so attractive is the energy it creates. A man who values himself walks differently, speaks differently, and engages differently. He's grounded, present, and confident without trying to prove anything. He doesn't chase. He chooses. He doesn't settle. He evaluates. And because he values himself, the right woman instinctively values him too. His self-respect becomes the foundation of his charm, his strength, and his presence. It's what makes him not just attractive, but unforgettable. He doesn't chase validation because his sense of worth doesn't come from how someone reacts to him. It comes from who he is. A man who doesn't need constant reassurance carries a different kind of presence. He doesn't seek approval in every interaction, and he doesn't crumble when someone doesn't respond the way he hoped. This stability is powerful because it reveals that his emotions are not controlled by external attention. He isn't waiting for someone to approve him before he feels good about himself. He already knows who he is, and that inner certainty changes everything. When a man doesn't chase validation, he communicates that he's not dependent on anyone to feel confident. He's not looking for someone to tell him he's enough. He already believes it. That kind of self-belief creates an aura of confidence that people naturally gravitate toward. Women especially feel drawn to this energy because it signals emotional maturity. It shows he isn't needy, insecure, or desperate for approval. He's centered, he's composed, and he's in control of his emotions rather than being controlled by them. Validation chasing creates a heavy, anxious energy that people can sense immediately. It leads to over-texting, over-giving, over-explaining, and doing too much just to get a small emotional reward. But a man who doesn't chase validation doesn't operate from that place. He doesn't try to prove his worth. He doesn't perform to impress. He doesn't twist himself into the version he thinks someone wants. Instead, he shows up authentically and allows the connection to unfold naturally. This makes him more attractive because he's not trying to be chosen. He's choosing as well. When he doesn't chase validation, his interactions become more genuine. He listens without trying to impress. He speaks with intention rather than pressure. He gives space instead of demanding attention. This creates comfort and emotional safety for the woman he's interacting with. She doesn't feel like she's being evaluated, tested, or placed on a pedestal. She feels like she's connecting with someone who is whole within himself. This balance creates a deeper, more meaningful connection. What makes him so attractive is that he isn't afraid of silence, distance, or uncertainty. He doesn't panic when someone doesn't give him instant approval. He trusts himself and the connection enough to let things unfold. This patience and confidence are rare, and rarity is always magnetic. A man who doesn't chase validation becomes the man whose presence feels grounded, stable, and calm. His energy stands out because he isn't chasing. He's observing, choosing, and staying true to his standards. He values his own opinion of himself more than anyone else's. And when someone lives from that mindset, they naturally attract respect. Women feel drawn to him because he doesn't place his self-worth in their hands. He's with them out of desire, not insecurity. He connects from abundance, not emptiness, and that's why he becomes unforgettable. His validation comes from within, and that internal certainty makes him the type of man who doesn't need to chase, because everything meant for him naturally finds its way. He sets boundaries without apology because he understands that self-respect is not negotiable. A man who knows his worth doesn't fear disappointing someone by honoring his limits. He doesn't feel guilty for protecting his energy, his time, or his emotional well-being. He knows that without boundaries, he loses himself, and any relationship built on self-abandonment eventually turns into resentment. So he chooses to stand firm, not out of ego, but out of clarity. This quiet clarity is powerful. It communicates strength without aggression and confidence without arrogance. When a man can say no calmly and without over-explaining, it sends a strong message. He respects himself enough to choose what aligns with him and walk away from what doesn't. This is rare, especially in a world where many people compromise their standards just to be liked. But he doesn't engage in people-pleasing. He won't sacrifice his mental peace to keep someone comfortable. He won't tolerate disrespect just to avoid conflict. He won't overextend himself to impress anyone. And this is exactly why he becomes so attractive, because his boundaries show that he values his own identity. Women feel drawn to men who have boundaries because it signals emotional strength. It shows that he's not afraid of losing someone by standing up for himself. He doesn't let attachment blind him. He doesn't allow chemistry to override common sense. He understands that a relationship without boundaries becomes chaotic, and chaos kills attraction. His ability to hold his ground creates a sense of safety, because a man who protects his inner world can also protect a connection. He doesn't set boundaries as threats or manipulations. He sets them as a way of defining who he is. He's not aggressive, he's assertive. He doesn't create walls, he creates structure. He doesn't demand perfection, he simply refuses disrespect. He communicates clearly, directly, and calmly. And nothing is more powerful than a man who expresses his needs without raising his voice, losing control, or apologizing for having standards. When he sets boundaries, he doesn't fear the outcome. That's what makes him magnetic. He's not attached to how someone might react. If someone respects his boundaries, they earn a place in his life. If they don't, he quietly withdraws. He chooses peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over temporary connection. This ability to walk away when needed is one of his greatest strengths, and it makes him unforgettable. Boundaries also create intrigue. When a man doesn't allow people unlimited access, he signals that his time and attention are valuable. A woman feels compelled to meet him at the level he holds for himself. She steps into the dynamic with more respect, more care, and more intentionality. His boundaries elevate the way she shows up because they reflect the level at which he lives. A man who sets boundaries without apology becomes attractive because he embodies maturity and emotional groundedness. He refuses to settle, refuses to bend to fear, and refuses to lose himself in the process of loving someone. And that unwavering self-respect makes him the kind of man who not only earns admiration, but keeps it. He lives a purpose-driven life, and that is one of the most powerful forms of attraction. A man with purpose carries a different kind of energy, focused, grounded, and intentional. His direction in life gives him a sense of clarity that others can feel immediately. He's not wandering aimlessly. He's not waiting for someone to give him meaning. He wakes up each day knowing who he is and what he's building, and that sense of mission becomes magnetic. A woman feels drawn to a man who knows where he's going because it signals stability, ambition, and strength. She can trust his energy because it isn't scattered or dependent on her attention. A purpose-driven man doesn't revolve his entire world around a relationship. He has goals, dreams, and responsibilities that come from within, not from external expectations. And this makes him incredibly attractive because he isn't looking for someone to fill an internal void. He's looking for someone to walk alongside him. He loves deeply, but he doesn't abandon his path. He stays committed to his vision, and that commitment is what sets him apart from others who are easily distracted or emotionally dependent. When a man has purpose, he becomes calmer in relationships. He doesn't panic when there's space. He doesn't cling when things feel uncertain. He doesn't overreact to small changes. His mission keeps him grounded. He has something bigger than temporary fear, bigger than insecurity, bigger than the need for constant reassurance. His life has direction, and that direction brings confidence. A woman can feel that confidence, not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, steady kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you're here to do. Purpose also creates discipline. A man who is focused on his goals doesn't waste time on drama, games, or inconsistency. He doesn't allow emotional chaos to derail him. He chooses peace, structure, and growth. This makes him stand out in a world where many people are easily distracted or easily swayed. His discipline becomes attractive because it shows reliability. He's not easily shaken. He's not easily tempted away from what matters. And that kind of stability becomes comforting and inspiring to the woman in his life. A purpose-driven man inspires without trying. His drive pushes him forward, and in that process, he elevates others around him. He doesn't need to convince anyone of his value. His actions speak louder. His consistency shows his character. His results show his habits. His progress shows his mindset. And that kind of man becomes unforgettable because he represents strength, growth, and emotional maturity. A woman feels safe with a man of purpose because he's not lost. He's not confused about who he is. He's not searching for identity in relationships. He brings a solid foundation, and that foundation makes attraction deepen. His life is not centered around being chosen. He centers his life around becoming the best version of himself. And that is exactly why she's drawn to him. His purpose doesn't take him away from love, it makes him more capable of giving it. His calm detachment is not indifference, it is emotional discipline. It's the ability to stay centered without being consumed, to care without being controlled, and to stay present without losing oneself. Many mistake this calmness for a lack of feeling, but in reality, it reflects a deep understanding of emotional balance. A man who practices calm detachment doesn't shut down or distance himself out of coldness. He simply refuses to be thrown off by every shift in mood, tone, or situation. This steadiness becomes magnetic because it provides a sense of emotional safety. A woman feels that she can express herself without triggering insecurity or chaos. His energy remains grounded no matter what storm is happening around him. Calm detachment means he doesn't react impulsively. He doesn't jump to conclusions, doesn't chase after reassurance, and doesn't crumble under pressure. Instead of spiraling into fear when something feels off, he stays centered. He listens. He observes. He speaks with intention rather than emotion-driven panic. This emotional stability is powerful because it creates trust. She knows he won't break when things get difficult. He won't use silence as punishment or emotional withdrawal as manipulation. His calmness says, I'm here, but I'm not afraid to give space. I care, but I won't lose myself. This kind of man isn't detached from his feelings. He's detached from fear. He doesn't cling because he doesn't fear abandonment. He doesn't overreact because he doesn't fear losing control. He doesn't argue to win. He communicates to understand. This is what sets him apart. His calmness is built on confidence, not avoidance. His stillness is built on self-awareness, not indifference. Calm detachment also shows he's emotionally self-sufficient. He doesn't take things personally. He doesn't assume the worst. He doesn't chase validation to feel secure. He understands that people sometimes need space, and he's mature enough to allow it without creating drama. A woman finds this deeply attractive because it shows emotional maturity, something rare and valuable. His stability makes her feel more grounded in the connection. She can relax because he isn't pushing, pulling, or trying to control the outcome. He's simply present, and presence without pressure is irresistible. When he practices calm detachment, he's also showing that he's anchored in his purpose. He has a life beyond the relationship, goals beyond attention, and identity beyond approval. This balance keeps him from becoming emotionally overwhelmed. He can give love and receive love without losing clarity. He can lean in without collapsing, and he can pull back without disappearing. What makes his calm detachment so attractive is that it creates emotional space for both people to show up authentically. No one is suffocated, no one is pressured, no one is forced into proving anything. The connection grows because it's built on choice, not fear. His calmness creates safety, and safety creates attraction. He's not indifferent. He's composed. He's not distant. He's balanced. He's not cold. He's grounded. And this rare combination is what makes his presence unforgettable. He lets connection flow, not force, because he understands that genuine attraction cannot be manufactured, controlled, or pushed into existence. A man who embodies this energy doesn't try to manipulate outcomes or rush emotional development. He knows that the strongest bonds grow naturally, at their own pace, without pressure. Forcing connection only creates resistance, but allowing it to unfold makes room for authenticity. When he approaches relationships this way, the dynamic becomes effortless. She feels free, not monitored. She feels safe, not overwhelmed. She feels interested, not suffocated. And this freedom is what pulls her toward him. He doesn't chase intensity just to feel secure. He doesn't push conversations that aren't flowing. He doesn't demand constant attention or reassurance. Instead, he stays present and connected, but never oversteps the natural rhythm of the relationship. He understands that emotional pressure kills attraction, while space invites curiosity. When he gives the connection room to breathe, she leans in willingly because she senses that he's not trying to control her feelings. She feels seen, not trapped. She feels chosen, not captured. A man who lets connection flow trusts the process. He trusts that what is meant for him will move toward him, and what isn't will naturally fall away. This level of trust creates a calm, grounded presence. He doesn't panic when there's a delay in response. He doesn't assume rejection when something shifts. He doesn't cling to certainty. His quiet confidence allows the connection to evolve organically. And this no-pressure energy is incredibly attractive because it shows emotional maturity. When he allows the flow, he's giving her space to feel her own emotions. A woman needs time to process, to feel, to grow into the connection. A forced connection leaves no space for desire to build, but a connection that flows creates anticipation, momentum, and emotional depth. She chooses him not because she feels obligated, but because she genuinely wants to. That difference makes the attraction stronger and more sustainable. Letting connection flow also shows that he's connected to his own life. He's not waiting for someone to fill an emptiness. He's not using connection as a distraction or a validation tool. He has purpose, routines, goals, and standards that guide his life. He isn't trying to speed up the relationship because he's lonely or uncertain. He's operating from abundance, not desperation. This emotional independence makes him even more attractive because it shows that he brings value rather than seeking it. When he doesn't force connections, he becomes easier to be around. His presence feels peaceful, inviting, and grounded. He doesn't create drama or emotional pressure. He communicates clearly, listens deeply, and lets conversations unfold naturally. If she leans in, he meets her halfway. If she steps back, he doesn't chase. He stays steady. This natural balance creates a dynamic where both people feel empowered and respected. He lets connection flow because he knows that real love isn't built on force. It's built on choice, freedom, and emotional alignment. And when a man moves with that kind of confidence and ease, the connection doesn't just grow, it thrives. It becomes something she returns to willingly because it feels real, natural, and deeply safe. In the end, she's drawn to the man who doesn't hold tight because his entire presence reflects strength, clarity, and emotional freedom. He values himself, lives with purpose, and carries a calm confidence that never seeks to control or force anything. His boundaries, his detachment, and his steady energy create a space where she feels safe, respected, and free to lean in naturally. He doesn't chase validation, doesn't fear loss, and doesn't lose himself in connection. He lets things flow, trusting that what's real will stay and that trust alone becomes magnetic. This is the man who becomes unforgettable, not because he tries to be, but because he shows up whole, grounded, and aligned. And in a world full of pressure and uncertainty, his presence becomes the anchor she never knew she needed.